Hello, welcome to Coach Unblocked, part of the Unblocked Podcast Network. This is Coach Fred Riley. I'm here tonight with my special guest, Brad Waggoner. Tuesdays, we interview coaches and talk about their Christian faith and how it has impacted their lives and impact their coaching. Brad is the head football coach at Gatlinburg-Pittman High School in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Coach Waggoner, we're glad to have you. Appreciate you coming on, partner.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about your path that got you to GP, and I think you've been a little all over the place, like a lot of coaches have had to do. Tell us your story.
Well, I grew up in Fayetteville, Georgia, which is just south of Atlanta. I went to a single A high school, Landmark Christian School. The school was started when I was a freshman in high school back in 1989. My parents were one of the three founders of the school, and so it was neat being a part of a school that started really from the ground up. My parents kind of had a vision where they wanted to help kids have an impact for Jesus Christ, and they thought that starting a school like that would do that. And Landmark at the time, my first year there as a freshman, we had about 150 students, and there are over 1,500 students now at that school. And so that school's thriving 30 years later.
Now, when your parents founding, were they founding the school? Now, did they operate as headmaster and teach and all that stuff, or did they just sort of financially back the school and launch the school?
Well, I didn't grow up from a rich family by no means, but they kind of they spearheaded it up. They were not the headmaster; that they were just on the board.
Gotcha.
They were in charge of hiring the headmaster. They hired everybody. To be honest with you, and so it took a lot of people buying into the situation. Chick-fil-A was very involved in it. Dan Cathy, all his sons went to school there, and so
okay, that's neat. Okay,
it helped. And what was funny is when I was in high school, our cafeteria workers were all Chick-fil-A workers. We had Chick-fil-A every day in high school.
That's awesome.
So,
okay.
But growing up, I was one of those kids. I loved sports. I played everything. Played baseball, football, basketball, ran track. I played for a high school coach, Bill Thorne, who's in the Hall of Fame in Georgia as a coach. He coached in the public school system, as well as obviously spent a long time at Landmark. And so, from there, I got the opportunity to go play at Georgia Tech. I was a linebacker. Wasn't great. I was a good high school player, average college player, but I loved playing the game. I knew that obviously one day my playing days would end, and I had always wanted to coach. If you had asked me back when I was in probably first or second grade, I would have told you I would want to be a football coach. And so
let me ask you, when you were at Georgia Tech, who was your coach?
I came in under Bill Lewis. Bill Lewis was there my first year, but then I played predominantly under George O'Leary. George O'Leary took over, and I think it was from there. That's where a lot of my contacts kind of lined up from. It got me jobs from there on out. But I played for Coach O'Leary when he was there.
And I think folks would, and I think you would agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. But I think from there, I think it's just like in the coaching world. Contacts are everything, and so for the first few jobs I ever had, it obviously came from contacts I had at Georgia Tech, and it was I got a great experience at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was a great place, and I'm really glad I had the opportunity to go there.
Well, and I think and you would agree the who you get coached by has a great influence on you and on your coaching style, and some of us were very fortunate, and I know I was, and you were, to have been coached by really, really good people who really, really knew the game and could help you go into your career with a foundation of knowledge that you could carry on and teach and coach. And everybody don't get that. Everybody's not around quality coaches in high school and college. They sort of have to find their way around as they get older. And so you were very blessed to have a foundational knowledge of how to coach the game, besides the fact of coming up in a Christian home, no question.
Yeah, and I did. I mean, I definitely was blessed. Kind of go back to my playing career. When I got done at Georgia Tech, I had 1 year of eligibility left, and my best friend from high school, he went to Liberty University out of high school, okay. And so I went and played my last year of eligibility, and that's where I got certified to teach. And but I went to Liberty University and I played 1 season under Sam Rutigliano, who was the head coach at the time.
Yeah.
And then George McIntyre, who was the former head coach at Vanderbilt at one time, he was actually the defensive coordinator that 1 year and was my position coach.
And so amazing. That is amazing.
And so, I mean, that was a neat year. It was totally different than Georgia Tech. But it was just, I mean, Liberty at the time they were in an FCS school at the time, a Division I boy, what they call it at the time. And, right. And so to see how far that school's come, since then to what it is now, it's unbelievable also.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm old enough to Sam Rutigliano, Cleveland Browns, Brian Sipe, I think, those kind of guys back in the day when they played, when you were driving into the red zone, you were on a baseball infield and kind of stuff. And so those are some cool names from the past that really, again, great people for you to be around and build a coaching foundation under. That is just so cool.
I obviously when I got done playing, I knew I wanted to coach, and so I remember going into. Coach O'Leary helped me. I remember going into George McIntyre's office. I knew I was getting ready to graduate. He's one kind of, because Georgia Tech, they didn't have a degree where you could major in education. So I was majoring in basically business or management, what they call it, Georgia Tech. And so when I was at Liberty, I remember Coach McIntyre telling me, at the time I wanted to coach in college, like all, a lot of college athletes do. And I remember him telling me, he said, you need to go ahead and get certified to teach because you just never know when you may want to use it.
Right.
I definitely want to coach. And so I was able to get certified to teach while I was at Liberty. And that kind of led me to my first job. And my first job, if I had not been at Liberty, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. But my first job was at VMI, is in Lexington, Virginia Military Institute. And what's funny is, I mean, what kind of led me to that job was the fact that Ted Kane, who was the offense coordinator for Dick Sheridan at North Carolina State, they had recruited me out of high school, but did not offer me. And but I had stayed in contact with him over and over and over and over, and even through my whole playing career at Georgia Tech. And that contact, just from him recruiting me, I guess me staying in contact with him. He offered me my first job, which was no glamorous job. It was a restricted earnings position. I was like video coordinator, pretty much a no-name person, to be honest with you, but I thought it was the best job in the world.
Now, what year were you at VMI?
I was there in 1997.
97.
Excuse me. No, it was. I got hired in December 97, but my first season, the season I was there was in 1998. That was Ted Kane's first season, 1998.
Okay. Because I know the names you're throwing out there. I was at UT Chattanooga, 84 through 88, and that was Dick Sheridan and that staff were the Furman staff at that time. So we played them 84, 85 before they went to NC State. Two of our coaches at Chattanooga went to NC State when Coach Sheridan took the job. Joe Pate and Johnny Henderson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think Joe Pate stayed there the rest of his career in some capacity. Johnny ended up actually coming back home because of a family situation and not staying up there. But so yeah, those are also names of people from my past that we crossed paths with. Ted Kane was on that staff, back in those days, and so yeah, again, just and you're right. I mean, the and I wasn't a very good one. The networking element of coaching, my guys I came up with were work hard, get after it. If you're good enough, they'll find you kind of guys. Well, that really wasn't great advice. And
Right.
it really wasn't. And I remember the first time I ever met anybody that networked was Joe Delisandris. And Joe D, he's the offensive line coach with the Ravens now. And when he came to Chattanooga, he spent so much time on the phone. We called him AT&D because he was on the phone for 2 hours a day networking. And none of us had really come from that kind of background and never seen anything quite like it. And it definitely worked for him, no question.
Well, from there, I guess I kind of got my first. I wouldn't say my breakthrough. I guess I kind of looked at it was my younger brother Clint Waggoner. He played at Alabama. He played at Alabama from '95 to '99. He came in under Gene Stallings, and then he played for Coach Dubose. And but I guess it was the spring of '98. I got hired as a graduate assistant in the weight room at Alabama. At the time, Coach Jones was a strength coach at the time there, and then Ellis Johnson was one that kind of helped me get that position. I had some kind of when I was at BMI, Bobby Ross's brother Danny Ross, Danny Ross, was friends with Ellis, and of course my brother was playing at Alabama at the time, so I had a connection in there at the time, and so when I got hired there, I thought that was kind of my breakthrough, I guess, per se. And so I went to Alabama. I spent 2 seasons there. While I was in the weight room, also I worked with Coach Johnson and actually Jeff Rousley. Jeff Rousley kind of took me under his wing when I was there. I can remember sitting in his office at nighttime till 11:30, 12 o'clock, drawing up passing routes for the practice script. And I was just willing to do anything and everything. I was just trying to learn. And and coming from that, while I was there, I got my master's in education administration, and then and that led me to my first full-time job. My first full-time job was at University of West Alabama under Bobby Johns, and I got to go. I was on that staff. Ashley Ingram, who was the offensive line coach at the time, me and him were really good friends still. He's at Navy now. And Jerry Pruitt was the defensive back coach at the time. And but I coached linebackers at University of West Alabama, and it was. I learned a lot. Probably was nowhere near ready for that position, but it was again, it was a neat place. It was a neat start. I think I made $25,000, and I thought I was a millionaire.
Well, you probably had more money then than you have now. I understand.
I felt like I did. But
let's cover that just for a minute, because I think you were at Alabama in 98, 99. Is that right, when you started coaching there?
Yes,
sir. Because I think this when we first met, because I was offensive coordinator at Central Tuscaloosa in 99. So we were both in Tuscaloosa at the same time in that little window, and I was working the camp there and around, and then I was at Inslee in that 2000 time right in there, and also just the Bobby Johns. Me and Bobby coached together at Chattanooga for 2 years, so we overlapped with Bobby. West Alabama, which again back in the day, Livingston University, teacher school. That school had so much influence on my life, and I didn't spend a day in class there. But all of my high school coaches were Livingston grads. Barry Halliday, Leo Wright, Jim Berryman, Sam McCorkle. They're all came out of Livingston. Jack Crow was my quarterback coach, offensive coordinator in college, a Livingston guy. Spent a lot of time with Willie Slater over the years. So it's amazing how much influence that little town, that little school has really had on football in the state of Alabama and the Southeast.
No question. What's funny is one of my guys on my staff here, Don Birchfield, he went to the University of West Alabama also. He played baseball at West Alabama. I don't know what years he was there, but he's an older guy, and he talks about all our West Alabama stories all the time together about certain places to eat. I can remember the gas station there. Everybody went there to get food right there in Livingston. And so, I mean, my time at West Alabama, it was a good time, but I had to learn on the fly. I mean, Coach Johns, he hired a young guy that probably didn't know what he was doing. And, I learned a lot, learned how to, some things that I didn't know what I was doing. And
Sure.
it really helped. It helped mold me as a young coach. There's no question about it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think now, that were y'all still doing, I guess by that point in time, y'all were, the world had gone to VHS tape and the different kind. You didn't have to go through doing real cut ups on 16 millimeter film, did you? Did you ever have to learn how to do that?
We switched to VHS tapes that year I was at VMI. I can remember VMI. I remember VMI having to go. I had to drive to Roanoke Airport on Sunday morning and get the tapes, and then I'd go back. Then I'd go back to the office, and I have like 9 VCRs all stacked on top of each other, and and you just kind of cut and splice, pushing buttons. I mean,
oh my gosh,
it's unbelievable how much time's changed.
Oh yeah, I mean those days of whoever was the film guy. I mean, all the way back to the driving. The 16 driving the film to Huntsville to get and the guys sleeping on the floor while it's getting processed, and then bring the cans of film back to Chattanooga or wherever it was, at that time. But then 2 VHS and stacking them and recording 8 or 9 of them at a time, and the stuff that we did, that these guys would have no idea what we were talking about. And you did what? I mean, you didn't just click a button, and no, there wasn't any button clickings going on. It's amazing what helped. It's funny, technology was supposed to make everybody's job easier, and it just made actually more time to do more stuff, throw more stuff on top of you if you ain't careful. Let's talk about. Obviously, you grew up in a Christian home. Your Twitter account is really interesting because you do some type of Bible verse every day. I mean, and between you post 2 things every day: a Bible verse and your day 397 of running, whatever that is you have going on. And let's talk about the Bible verses first, and let's get into your running thing that you've had going on, and tell me about that. When did you start doing the Bible verses?
I started doing that. When I didn't start doing Twitter or anything like that until I think it was like 2014 when I got hired at Georgia Tech as the director of recruiting for offense. I really didn't know how Twitter worked, but I wanted to do something that was kind of just inspirational every day. Obviously, what I try to do every morning when I usually get up every morning at 4:45, 5 o'clock. I go to the office. I try to do my my Bible verse and my daily devotional first thing in the morning, and usually I'll try to kind of tie that Bible verse around the quote of the day or something around that Bible verse the best I can each day.
Gotcha.
I try to post it because what it does also for me, it keeps me accountable also, because it's important for me to start my day doing that. And now the running part, that was something I started. I've always liked to run, but I started that when I started running when I was at Georgia Tech, and then I kind of started out where a few years back I wanted to run maybe 100 days throughout the year, and it kind of like as a health goal. Everybody has the New Year's resolutions, and so this year also my goal was to run 200 days. So I've got like 20, 21, 22 days left, and it's not easy. I mean, and I'll get confused. Like this morning, I didn't run this morning, and so it's like my wife will ask me. She's like, "Well, I didn't see no picture today, so I guess you didn't run today." And so there's no hiding that. But
yeah. I mean, and I have to tell you, in none of your pictures do you look like you just had fun. I mean,
no, it was zero fun to it. I will be honest, I hurt the entire time, but now I've ran a half marathon and stuff like that. But usually I run. It's usually 3 miles every day, or on the days I run 3 miles every day, and it's just something that I started, and And be honest with you, it makes me feel better. If I don't do it in the morning time, I don't have time to do it in the evenings.
So I understand that. Now, and I sort of jumped forward, so and I apologize for that. So let's go back and finish up what got you to Gatlinburg-Pittman, the sort of the rest of your story.
Yeah, well, kind of fast forward. I started my head coaching career in Alabama. I was at Laverne High School. I actually followed Mike DeBose his first time at Laverne, and I spent 3 years there. It was three. It was three. Probably, looking back, that's been a long time. 2005, 2006, 2007. There, those 3 years are probably three of my favorite years coaching was. I loved coaching in that little town. But as a young coach, you're always kind of. I was striving, trying to move. To do the next best thing. Who I thought at the time. But I left there and actually took over the head job at Pike County High School, where I followed Wayne Grant, which was not a very good idea.
Yeah.
Wayne Grant, obviously was very, very successful there. And I came in. It was kind of it was not a good decision on my part, but we had actually ended up having a really good year. Went to playoffs, and I guess fortune had it. I ended up having to play Laverne in the playoffs, and Laverne beat me in the playoffs there. And so that from there it led me to be. I went back to Georgia. I finally got a head job back in Georgia, where I grew up, and I was the head coach in Georgia for 5 years. That's where I met my wife. And then I got, I guess my goal, when I was in college, I wanted to coach in college, but I really wanted to coach at Georgia Tech. And I didn't know Paul Johnson. He was long after I'd left. I didn't know really anybody on that staff, to be honest with you. But I did know Ted Roof. Roof had played at Georgia Tech, and he had come in toward the end of my playing career there. And so I was crazy. I wrote a letter to Paul Johnson every day for 2 years. When I say every day, I wrote a letter every day. I put it in the mailbox every day. Right. And I went almost a year. I went a year and a half and never heard anything. It just like, I didn't get a typed letter back saying they even acknowledged it. But Coach Johnson, out of the blue, by a year and a half later, called me out of the blue and asked me to come for an interview. And I thought, I remember telling my wife, I was like, this is my breakthrough. It is going to happen. And so I was all excited. And I went to Atlanta to interview with him. And I walked in his office, and his exact words for me, he said, I'm tired of you writing me a letter. I want to meet you, but I'm not going to hire you. That's exactly what he told me. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, I left there dejected, and I was like, I had prayed for that opportunity, and so I went home and told my wife, I was like, well, I'm gonna stay as a high school coach, and I said I'm done trying for that. So I'll be honest with you, I moped around for about a month and a half. This was in February. I moped around for about a month and a half, and we started spring practice, and it was over spring break. I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm not letting Coach Johnson get the best of me. I'm going to start writing them again. And so I started writing them again in April. And I won't forget, we had just finished our spring game. It was in May. We had just finished our spring game, and my little boy was, he was a year old at the time. And I got a text message from Coach Johnson, asked me to if I could come meet with him on that following Monday. And I had been keeping up with them nonstop, and so I was like, I said, "There's nothing open there. They don't have anything open." And so I went the following Monday, and it was a short conversation again. He said, your persistence paid off. He said, I'm hiring you, and he said, you want a job? I said, yes, sir. And he said, can you start work on Monday? I said, I can start work on Monday. And so I went back outside, told my wife, you ain't going to believe this. They offered me a job. And she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. She said, are they going to pay you any money? I said, I don't know. And so, but I got offered at the time, the assistant director of player personnel. And, I ended up being the director of recruiting for offense and offensive analyst. And I spent 3 years there. And, I kind of told my wife that once my little boy got I mean, I loved the job. I loved it. It was one of the things I loved the recruiting part. I loved all of it.
Right.
I was, there's no way I was gonna be able to see my little boy grow up in that spot. But he was little at times, so I pretty much told my wife that once he got into to grade school, that I'd probably go back. I'd go back to being a high school coach, and so that I had 20 years in the retirement system in Georgia, and so I could just stay in the retirement system in Georgia and go and get the other 10 more years, or it led me to Trousdale County High School, which is in Tennessee. I had met the director of schools there through Andy McCullum, who was on staff at Georgia Tech at the time. And Trousdale was a place that they had.
And Trousdale, is that Clint Satterfield?
Clint Satterfield, yes, sir.
Me and Clint Satterfield were teammates at North Alabama. And
really?
Clint lived in the dorm room right next to me at UNA. We were
yes, sir.
We were quarterbacks. There were 5 of us at quarterback that were there at the time, and he was a good enough athlete. They moved him to defensive back, and he ended up being a defensive back his whole career. And I actually went home with him one spring break and worked in the tobacco fields with him for a little bit, and because his daddy was a legendary coach there, and and he married a little girl named Kim Couch. Well, Kim's brother Tim was my quarterback at UT Chattanooga that I coached.
Wow.
So we were all tied in together there for a number of years, and great people.
I mean, because the Satterfield family, that's that's what Trousdale's all about in Hartsville. I went there, and he hired me there, and one reason he hired me was the fact that I had some experience at Georgia Tech. With the option, because they had always been pretty much a wing T option program,
right.
And so and they had kind of been a little bit on down times a little bit. They had been beaten out of the playoffs, because in Hartsville you don't lose much there, and and they had been put out in the first round a couple years in a row. So I came in there in 2017. We won the region championship my first year there, and then we played for the state championship in 2018. We lost the state championship game to Peabody. Came down to the very end, and so I had gotten really 2.5 years in Tennessee, and then a school offered me a job back in Georgia at Elbert County High School, which is it's in Elberton, Georgia, which is near Athens. And it was I thought it would be a great job, and I went there, and of course that was a year when COVID came on, and it was the craziest year of my entire life. I went there. We ended up being out of school for like 5 months, and so I decided. After that year at Elbert, that I only need, because in Tennessee all you got to have is 5 years to be vested in Tennessee, and so I kind of took a leap of faith. I was like, well, the whole COVID situation, I didn't know what was going to happen with all the schools in COVID situations. So my wife's from Summerville, Georgia, which is northwest Georgia, and Vic Grider, who's in the Hall of Fame in Tennessee, he was the head coach at South Pittsburgh at the time, and so South Pittsburgh's not far from Summerville, and so I went to South Pittsburgh in 2020, that COVID year. I went there to be his defense coordinator. It was close to home, because it was just a weird time with going on the world. And we played for the state championship there, and so but Coach Grider retired, and so at the end of the season, and so I needed one more year in the retirement system in Tennessee, and so South Pittsburgh hired a guy that was from South Pittsburgh, but he was the head coach in the Canadian Football League, Chris Jones. Chris Jones was a graduate assistant at Alabama years ago.
Chris Jones, I was Chris Jones's position coach at UT Chattanooga.
Yep. And so they hired him because at the time the Canadian borders were all kind of cut off with the COVID stuff, and so he didn't know he didn't know what was going to happen. So
he stayed like half a year and bolted, didn't he? Went back to Canada.
Well, he stayed and won a game, and to be honest with you, as soon as the board offered, they offered him a head job back in Canada, and but. If that would have happened, if that would not have happened, I'd probably been the head coach of South Pittsburgh. But I think that, God knew what he was doing. That kind of led me to Gatlinburg-Pittman. How I ended up at Gatlinburg-Pittman was I knew nobody at Gatlinburg-Pittman. It was probably one of the only jobs I've ever gotten where I didn't know anybody there. Mm-hmm. But the connection was Clint Satterfield. Clint Satterfield knew Jack Parton, who was the director of schools here for a long time, because Jack had been here forever. And Clint called me and wanted to know. He said, "Would you be interested in that Gatlinburg-Pittman job?" And I was like, "I don't know nothing about Gatlinburg-Pittman. I mean, I've gone there on vacation. I don't know anything about Gatlinburg-Pittman." And but Gatlinburg-Pittman, they had a coach here, Benny Hammonds, who's still involved with us. It comes to practice every day. He'd been the head coach here for 40-something years. Lots of tradition, and I consider myself one of the lucky ones to be the head coach here. I mean, it's a great community, great place. Football's important, and God's really blessed me and my family since we've been here.
Well, now we'll wrap it up with I mean, your journey is amazing. I mean, it really is. There's no way you navigate all that without a wife who's a really good teammate. So let's brag on her a little bit and talk about her a little bit and her role as the coach's wife, mostly in small towns, which ain't the easiest thing to do. No. I mean, you can't go anywhere without everybody knowing who you are, and let's brag on her a little bit.
Well, I mean, every school I've been a head coach in high school has all been small towns, and so she's real quiet. I mean, she's the type that they're probably talking bad about me in the stands, and she's probably just sitting right next to them, just probably just I don't know, smiling probably. I don't know, but she's kind of she's one that she navigates everything at home. I've got a little boy that's he's in 5th grade. He lives and dies on Friday nights. I mean, he loves football. I think he loves football more than I do. I mean, he lives he can tell you everything, and I have to get on to him all the time because he's like, "Well, Dad, that's a cupcake team you're gonna play." I was like, "Don't give me the." He's like, I don't want to give you no rap for it. He's a big Alabama fan. He listens to all that stuff. But my wife, I mean, she kind of we've had to move obviously a bunch of times, and she's always willing to. I mean, she has to step into a new place, and she's a school counselor, and so we've been fortunate everywhere we've been. She's been able to be a school counselor, and so but she does a great job.
Usually, the wives that make those kind of moves are either counselors or nurses. I mean, they're teachers, nurses. There's some where there's going to be a readily available job. It sort of works a lot easier if that's the case, and certainly if you're both educators, it's a bunch easier to make those kind of moves, no question.
It is, and like I said, it takes the whole family, especially in these small towns, because when you go there, now Gatlinburg's a little bit different. I mean, Gatlinburg has been, it's a small town, but it's still you feel like you're in a bigger town, but it's still a small town. But the people here have been very, very, very welcoming, and we've been able to meet a lot of great people here, like we have everywhere. But it's always hard. Anytime you move, it's hard. It's always hard on the family from the standpoint of you having to learn new people. Little boys got to learn new friends, and so that's stuff that I guess when I got into coaching, you didn't think about when you're young and single, and it was no problem moving from here to there. But now when you got to think about 2 other people, it makes you put a lot more things in perspective.
No question. Well, again, congratulations on the great season you're having this year. Thank you so much for telling the Unblocked Podcast Network, your story. It is an amazing story. It's unreal. The guys that so far that I've brought on here that I've known them or known about them for years, and they've always come up with something like, "You're kidding me." I mean, really? And you've done the same thing tonight. And We appreciate you being on. Good luck to you the rest of the year, and God bless you. Thank you for all you do for young people and for the sport of football.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you so much for having me. And I got a lot of respect for you. I remember. I can remember you being a young coach. I can remember one time when you came down to West Alabama, and you. I know Coach Johns had you down there for something, and I can remember you drawing up plays on the board or something. We were running I think Coach Johns was running the option at the time, and I've always.
I spoke at the clinic. I spoke at y'all's clinic, and I'm sure did.
And I followed your career all the way through, especially the young coach following up. And, I have a lot of respect for you, and I sure do appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much, partner. Talk to you soon. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.